hello everyone. I am James Logan, and I'm going to be moderating a panel today on digital comic books, and we have a couple other folks with us, and why don't we go ahead and go down the line real quick and talk about what we each have to do with comic books, and also if you're reading anything current, tell everybody what your favorite top or couple books that you're reading right now are, and then we'll go into into talking about digital comics and the future of comic books.
Okay.
My name is David Peterson. I'm here at the convention promoting my fantasy novels, Angst and Buried in Angst. And I've been collecting comic books and reading comic books since, I don't know, before I can remember. I've got stacks of boxes in a closet in my basement taller than I am. Not that that's that hard to do. But, and I've always collected. Now, I have just now ventured into digital comics a little bit with my Amazon Kindle, and I'm not a huge fan.
Okay.
So, but I'm trying it just to see what it's like. And I'm a DC guy. I like DC. I like Marvel too. But most recently, I kept up with every issue of DC New 52 for the first year.
Wow. Okay.
And
cool.
just out of curiosity, because it had been a while since I've collected anything.
And just out of curiosity, did you stay interested in 52? Or are you still reading?
Well, I mean, when you buy all of them, it gets kind of expensive.
It does get really expensive, yeah.
Fast.
That's a huge thing we'll talk about.
I thought it was... I liked that they rebooted because it brought in a lot of new audience. I did not stay with it only because I didn't want to continue collecting all of them. It was kind of a harken back to when I did collect more than anything.
Oh, okay. Sure. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm Tim Frazier. I'm promoting my first novel, which is Memoirs of an Ex-Zombie, available online. I'm also published through Yard Dog Press, which has a booth in the dealer's room. I have a short story called The World's Biggest Horny Toad in Bubba and Time Saves None. And I'm also the author of the Necronomicrap. It's a horoscope book, and it's like one of those books that you get at the grocery store when you're waiting in line to get out, and it's like that, only everything's wrong.
You sound qualified to talk about anything.
And let's see, comics.
Yeah.
I've been collecting comics ever since I was a kid. When I was in college, I really enjoyed collecting independent and underground comics. Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers and stuff like that. And then later on, I got into more independent comics like Cerebus the Aardvark.
Yeah.
Things like that. Right now, I read. I still read Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
You're reading the IDW stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
Yeah. And I was reading Wonder Woman there for a while, and I was reading Thor so long as he was still in Oklahoma.
Oh, Jason Aaron's one is really good though. I mean, if you haven't looked at the God Butcher stuff, it's fantastic.
Okay.
Sorry, you said Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Are you looking forward to the Michael Bay film? I'm sorry, I just needed to kill you a little bit.
IDW's wonderful Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is the reason we can all ignore that film. Yeah. I guess I'll introduce myself quickly. I'm James Logan. I run Geekvolution on YouTube. That's our YouTube channel. And I do daily content with some other folks. My partner Vince and Dan. We have other folks that come in and out of the channel. And we do daily content, and we discuss comic books and comic book films primarily, but lots of other pop culture stuff. And so I've been reviewing new comics since we started the channel back in 2009. So I've been keeping up real hard with DC and Marvel, and then lots of other things as well. I have just fallen in love with IDW the last couple of years. I never thought anybody could take like as many like properties that already existed and do things with them, and they're doing like a lot of great monthly titles now. They're not just doing minis like they used to. So anyway, there's a lot of really good stuff going on in comics right now. Anybody in the room, show of hands, has anybody ever purchased or read a digital comic book? Okay, cool. So there's enough people in here that don't know anything about digital comics. I'd like to start off by just giving a little bit of a rundown of what the digital scene is like right now, and give you some kind of interesting factoids that you may not know about. And then we'll talk about how it affects collecting and what it's like, reading digital versus print, which might sound obvious, but that's changing all the time, and so that gets really interesting. And then just kind of what it means for the future and for the future of comic book shops and things like that. Like I said, it is a constantly changing medium. We've had digital comics for years now, but we didn't start having day-and-date digital, meaning that you can buy the books in digital the day the print comes out until the beginning of '52. And so this just happened 2 years ago. So it's constantly changing. One of the things that's interesting about it is that they cost exactly the same as print does, and that's a bit of an issue for people. But interestingly, a lot of folks will still buy them because it means they don't have to go to the comic shop, and also a lot of folks overseas that can't get print comic books, it's a lot easier for them to read. So you find that a lot of the people buying digital comic books are people in other countries. Every major and most minor comics publisher offers digital now on the same day of print release. This was not true 2 years ago, so it's changing all the time. We also have now a lot of digital first releases, meaning they put it out, which means a company will put out a comic book in digital and then it goes in print later. And so that kind of messes with collectability a little bit, especially if somebody wants to read it when it first comes out. Because if they really want to read it, as soon as it hits the stands online, they have to buy it twice. So that becomes really problematic. Yay, we have lights.
Yes, Lord.
Something we're seeing a lot of now too are getting digital comics with your print. So Marvel, I think all of their $3.99 books, if you buy print, you also get digital. And a lot of people say, well, what is the point of that? If you've got it in your hand already, why would you read it digitally? Some people share those codes with other people, so that's something that's helpful for people. I'm not sure if Marvel realizes that's going on and they're losing money that way, but that's something that happens. And I think that the idea is, for the sake of collectability, if you want to just collect a comic book and keep it back, you don't ever have to open it because you can just read the digital code, which is silly because you have to peel the label off from inside the thing to do it in the first place, so you've already changed the value of the book if it's going to be worth anything at all, because most current comics are not going to be worth that much in 10, 20 years. So it's kind of odd that that's offered, but it can be a benefit for some people. Marvel offers it for free that way with $3.99 books. The DC will charge you extra to do it. So you'll have like a combo pack, and they'll charge you an extra $1 to get the digital. I'd like to know why people buy that. I don't know. So anyway, the long and short of it is, it's constantly changing. It's really bizarre and organic, and I think in 2 years it's not going to look anything like it does right now. So you guys, pros and cons to reading digital versus buying print. If you read comic books, must you own a physical copy?
Well, I like to have a physical copy with me, just to have it. But, I'm not sure if that's, just something that, because I grew up doing it that way. And well, it's kind of like when you have action figures, you buy 2 of them so that you have one that you open up and play with, the other one you put away to sell later.
That's what I always used to do, yeah.
And I think the advance of the digital comics is a lot because of the technology being able to read them anywhere. If it was just on, it wasn't that long ago where it was just on computers. You could only see stuff on computers, but now you can see them anywhere you go.
Well, and the technology has just gotten better. It's even, in my opinion, kind of irritating to read comics on a phone, but tablets have made it just spectacular. If you've got a tablet that's at least 10 or 11 inches, it's like reading the comic book. I mean, like, it's the same size. I used to be really anti-reading digital, and I don't do a lot of it. I do some, but boy, it changed my mind a little bit, being able to read it on a tablet.
I think that one of the advantages that I've heard, and I would agree with, is, if I move, having to carry all those boxes of comics is a big pain. And if you've got your whole collection on a tablet, that makes it pretty easy. And, if you scrap your tablet and upgrade and get a new one, you've still got the comics with you. So I mean, there's a really nice advantage to that. Digital comics are also really nice for that comic book emergency when the comic book store's closed. You know, I'm really curious. What is this comic? What's going on with this comic? Right?
I need a comic book.
I need my comic book fix, right? Ink to the veins, ink to the veins, and
you got a 52.
And you know, and that's kind of nice. I like that. I have a hard time attributing the same value to digital comics that I do to print, because it's not tactile. You can't hold it, you can't feel it, you can't touch it. It's on something that I've already purchased to view media. And the idea of having to pay the same price for it makes me cringe. It's the same with ebooks in general. Having to spend $18.95 because on an ebook because the hardback is the only thing that's out, I think it's nonsense.
I think it's nonsense.
And because I format my own ebook, it's not that hard. I mean, even to make it nice and fancy. Same with the digital comics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like they have the printing costs.
It's not costing them anything to print the thing.
And
yeah.
I agree that it has a value. They have to pay the artists. They have to pay the writers and the editors and all of that.
But they're not paying them any more than they would have if they just printed it.
Well, so take out the printing cost and lower the cost of it. But they're saying there's an expected value there, and so people are buying it for that much. I'm not.
I think a lot of people that buy digital, I mean, there's a number of reasons. A lot of people who buy strictly digital and they don't buy print. A lot of people, unlike us, I don't know where you guys are from necessarily, but I mean, me here in the Kansas City area, there's a lot of comic book shops. There's places to go. There are a lot of people who, of course, live 90 minutes or 3 hours away from a comic book shop, and comics are not widely available in places other than comic book shops. You might have a few at a grocery store, but not the selection that you need. And getting comics shipped from the companies is, I've heard from a number of people, unreliable. So a lot of people, that's the best alternative for them. And also, you don't have to worry about if they're in stock at the shop, you know what I mean? Because you don't have to worry about availability. You don't have to worry, did my comic shop get enough of this issue, because it's all there. You're just paying to look at it. That's the biggest problem with digital, is that you don't actually own them. And that's the biggest thing that's bothered me about this thing since the beginning, and I hope this changes as time goes on. But I don't know if you guys are aware of this. You cannot download your digital comic books. You are paying the same price to read what you could go out and purchase. You're actually just paying for access. So if I want to read the latest issue of Batman, and I want to read it digitally, I gotta pay $3.99 to go look on somebody else's server. Now I can look at it on any device I want to. I can take it anywhere I want to, like you guys were saying, but I don't actually own it.
Now, so on my
I don't own it.
On my Kindle, it does download.
But does it stay in your Kindle?
Yeah. Well, unless I remove it.
Does it?
And then it rests out in the cloud. Or maybe Amazon has a different deal than some of the other digital providers.
Well, and of course, Comixology is kind of the primary one.
Right.
With
Amazon
digital,
is newly into this, but yeah, it genuinely downloads.
Okay, and then if you put it on your cloud, then you can take that from your cloud and put it someplace else.
Anytime you can access their web reader, you can access the reader through your computer.
So if
Kindle.
So if their server goes down, you still have it.
If it's on, if you
download it. No, you're absolutely right. If the server goes down, you do continue to have it to read on the device that you've already downloaded.
Okay. Because the file that you download.
But what happens if you get rid of that device?
Well, then you have to re-download it on the new device.
Yeah.
But you still would have access to it.
Yeah.
But what if that company ever folded?
If Amazon ever folds, I think that
That's why you do backups.
Implode at that point. I won't be on panels anymore because I won't be selling books.
I'm not worried about Amazon folding, but I just mean like
DC?
If no, but there are certainly smaller presses that put out digital comics. That's all I'm saying. This did happen recently, and I don't remember the name of the company, but there was a Japanese company that people had done this with, where they had purchased comics and they could look at them, but they didn't own them. And when the company folded, everybody lost everything. So I mean, like this is happening. You're right. It's not as likely to happen with the big stuff. At the same time, I don't like that you have to spend full price and you don't technically own it.
You know, you bring up a point about that. If you don't have the physical copy, what does that do for resale value? Because comic shops, they don't just sell new stuff. They
No,
also...
but they make their bread and butter on new stuff.
Okay.
Comic book stores don't make a great deal on back issues. Most of the money they get is from what they buy from Diamond week to week, and usually the markup is about double.
Yeah, I mean, there is no value to digital comics. I mean,
No, certainly not, of course.
The value is in the print. Now, value is a subjective term. You know, if I wanted to turn around and sell my comic book collection, you know, good luck. It's my perceived value, not yours. The value of anything is, you know, whether or not somebody will buy it.
True, but what you can, but how much money you can get out of it is determined by, of course, how much of it still exists, and you know, supply and demand, just basic economics. So, I mean, like, comics are still worth selling very often, especially, you know, if what you have is rare enough or old enough, or even modern stuff. If there were low print runs, stuff is worth more. You know, stuff that you might not think was going to be worth anything if they didn't make very many of them. So, you know, with your big two, with your DC and Marvel, you're not going to have that. But sometimes with image books and some other things, you will.
Well, how do artists and writers feel about all this? If you know, the resale value, not just resale, but it's going out on different medium. It's getting. Are more comics being drawn? Are more comic books being done and produced?
That's a good question. I think probably.
I think this is the opportunity that is the same for comic books as it is for independent writers. Is that a lot more independent comics can be provided this way. I mean, without having the print costs involved. I mean,
you see underground stuff popping up everywhere now,
which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, I think so too.
But is anybody making money off it?
No,
not really.
I don't write my books to make money on them.
Yeah, it's exactly.
I think it's pretty obvious.
Like
I don't either.
Yeah,
no, it's exactly like just writing a novel.
Yeah, and it's nice. There's no longer that block there. And it's great that these people have the opportunity to put their work out there, because there is an audience. There's an audience for almost everything.
Sure.
And you know, that's something that was missing in the print industry. And I think that, you know, without having that block, it's a really good opportunity. And it's going to be an interesting time. Amazon actually in the last week just released their digital comic book creator, which is,
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, which is to help independent comic book producers or individuals, you know, format their comic for the Kindle, which is an excellent idea.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you do have to worry, I suppose, to a degree about oversaturation. If anybody can put it out, then then it's more difficult for everybody to be seen, certainly.
Well, it's the thing with independent books.
But
and
that's
not to you know, get on a tangent about that, but there's a lot of awful crap out there because a lot of people don't get their stuff edited, or they don't, or, you know, there are worse writers than me. I can't even imagine that. But, you know, it's so weeding your way through that to find the good stuff isn't always easy, especially if you have to pay for it. But, you know, they've got a good review process involved, and you know, like with anything else, you kind of look into it before you buy it.
Well, one thing you gotta wonder is how long the novelty of digital comics is gonna last. How long can we continue charging people the exact same price for print before people just quit paying it?
Yeah,
and I really didn't think it would take this long, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm kind of surprised that the model is still the same. What I'd like to see happen, I don't think it'll ever happen. I'd like to see digital go to a subscription-based program like Netflix. I think that needs to happen. I think what needs to happen is we need to make it easier for people to read a lot more books, because the more books people are reading, especially with Marvel and DC, companies that are always trying to get you to buy, you know, tons and tons of books. They're crossing over in other books, and you know, we got these $3-4 models where they want you to buy 30-40 books a month, but most people can't afford that, right? With digital, keeping the cost down, I feel like digital is already growing the industry. We know that more people are already reading comics than used to. They're buying digital. It's not helping the print numbers. They're still staying about the same. Your top comic books still sell about 100,000, 150,000, really at the most. 200,000 if it's something huge like Amazing Spider-Man 700. But
I think that, if I may, I think that digital comics is the way of the future. I think with the expenses and costs that go into printing, I think you're going to see less and less printed comic books. I think that it's not a novelty. I think it'll continue. And I think you're right about the subscription service, but isn't Marvel starting to do that?
Marvel has something called Marvel Digital Comics Unlimited, which they were doing prior to the big boom of digital that we had when D&D started in a couple years ago. And that's not for new books. That's all back issues. And
Right,
it
but
still
I think
continues to be back issues.
Isn't it now where they're updating it where it's only 3 months out? It's like much...
Is it 3 months out now?
Yeah.
I thought it was still 6, but I haven't looked into it for a while.
It's a new program that they've rolled out in the last couple of months. I don't have an iPad.
See, I knew they had put it on iOS
So-
devices and Androids, but I didn't know they had gone to 3 months.
I could be wrong, but I
Okay,
know
I'll
it's
check
more
on it.
recent.
But the question is, are they doing it with everything? Or is it just select books like it always has been? Because it's always still been select books.
And that's the reason that I never got into the Marvel comics on the digital program. I
Me
tried
too.
it for a month, and you know, yeah, you get to skip every other issue, and that's not very fun.
No, that's useless.
I'm like, oh, I can get caught up on this. No, I can't.
Yeah, I mean, like, I did it for a month too. I tried it out, and I read Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men that way, but then other things, I had the same thing that you did, where it was like, well, that issue's not there. What's the point?
Yeah.
It might not fewer print issues, it'd be more special run issues.
Yeah.
Like if a digital comic has a lot of downloads, well, maybe someone would like a hard copy of this, and then they would do a special edition.
One thing we've really got to keep in mind too is the popularity of trade paperbacks and how huge that's become. I don't know if you guys know this, but Marvel and DC too, but Marvel especially is putting out their trades so fast. I mean, like, after a story arc finishes, like sometimes a couple weeks later, you've already, like a month or two later, you've already got the trade paperback for it. If anything, if single issues ever go away, and of course if that happens, that'll be the end of comic book stores. A lot of the reason, by the way, that the prices for digital have stayed up with the print is because they're trying to keep the comic stores alive. That's a lot of it. But anyway, if single issues ever went away, I don't think we would see, I think it would be a long, long time before we ever saw the end of print. I think if nothing else, you'd see weekly digital, and then they'd collect it in print.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, how long is it going to take before that happens? Because even the last 2 years, having day and day already, I thought that was going to be enough to affect the comic book stores a lot harder than it has. If you look at month-to-month sales of single-issue comics, the comic book stores are still ordering about the same amount they were back before we had day and day.
It's an accessibility thing.
It's really
and
interesting.
It's also making it more available to more people, like you had said. It makes it for people that don't have access to a comic book shop.
Mm-hmm.
They can now have access to that comic book.
Right.
And I think that there is something to be said about that availability and how easy it is for them to get it. It's spreading the word. So, you know, if they do find access to a comic book shop, it might increase sales.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of mom and pop hardware stores, for instance, that you would think would have gone out of business when Walmart moves next door, and they actually end up doing better because of the increased traffic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is still a thing in transition.
Yeah.
Anytime a new technology comes along, it takes a while for society to figure out what to do with it.
Exactly.
You know, and we're all just learning. And this, you know, there's a chance it may be a bump, and then it just goes back to the way it was. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
But there's you know.
I don't think you're wrong when you say digital is the way of the future. I don't think that at all. At the same time, the question is, how does it affect collectability? Those of us that have been collecting single issues forever kind of still want our single issues, and there's still enough of us left that it's keeping that alive for now. But how long is that going to take? I mean, like, I'm 28. There aren't as many even guys my age than guys 38 or 48 that are buying singles right now. A lot of guys my age that read comics regularly are buying trade, if they're buying print at all. And so the question is, are we going to be raising children that are interested in collecting, or are they going to grow up reading and not just with comic books, but all kinds of other mediums? Are we going to be raising another generation of collectors, or is everybody going to want everything more accessible and not taking up rooms and rooms in their house? And I can't answer that question. I don't know.
Well, I think the important thing is raising kids that appreciate good stories and good artwork.
Precisely. Sure.
And however the technology advances from that they will find what works for them.
Well, and naturally, that's what's most important. At the same time, if it's all kind of, if we get to where people are reading mostly in digital, do we ever get to a point where it's so congested and it's all just kind of in the internet and people forget about stories? They kind of fall away. Classics being reprinted keeps classics alive. So I wonder how it's going to affect us culturally. Will stories stick in our minds the way they used to?
Do you get as much out of reading digitally, anything, that you do out of reading print? I find it to be a much different experience.
Yes.
I've got the Kindle Fire, and then a regular book version. And if I read the book, I get a different experience, and I also remember it different than if I'm looking at it digitally. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. There's something, the smell, the fact that you can touch it, feel it, turning the pages. I think that won't ever completely go away.
I don't think the digital version seems much more of a short-term experience for me. When if I've got something hard, it's a long-term experience. It's a commitment. It's a collector's item. It's part of my house now.
It's interesting that you say that, because the few digital comics I've got, by the time I get to the last page, I'm like, that's it. I'm like, wait,
where's the rest?
Is there only 5 pages here? Let me go back. What did I miss?
Let me click harder.
Yeah, it's not the same.
One thing that's really interesting, you guys mentioned how different an experience it is to read in digital. The Comixology reader, if you use the panel-to-panel feature, which is really interesting, quite fantastic, it makes it an entirely different experience. At this point, it becomes almost cinematic. It's like bridging the gap between like print comics and like motion comics. I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but anytime I read digital on Comixology now, I do this just to see what they did with it. Because when they go panel to panel, it's not just like you got this panel and then they go in, you got this other panel. It's like they set it up differently, so you'll experience the narrative differently. For instance, I did this. I read Indestructible Hulk #1 this way. That was at the beginning of Marvel Now, and there's a panel where there's a character, I forget who it is. It's some agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Where Hulk comes up behind her. And he's about to smash her, and you see her just standing, not knowing he's there, and then the panel pulls back, and you see Hulk behind her. Well, if you had read that in the comic book, you would have seen the entire panel. But I got a surprise out of it, seeing it that way, where they showed me a piece of the panel, and then they showed me all of it, and suddenly it's an entirely different experience. It's really interesting. So I mean, there's merit to doing it this way, and if you read it that way, it doesn't feel like you only got 5 pages. So that's kind of nice, but yeah, it's just an entirely different thing.
Yeah. I don't dislike it. I don't hate it, but it's not the same. And I don't see giving up my print versions anytime soon. Mm-hmm. So what about you guys? Do you guys? Yeah, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
I honestly, I don't like digital for the comics, as in for buying the whole comics. I read a lot of the web comics that come out daily or once a week or every few days. And there's one that I honestly enjoy that I am going to get the print version once the chapters are done, which I do. And but they do go too fast on the e-readers. I don't like them because they're too small to read on the book. Read on the phones and stuff. You can't get you never know if you're really in out of order, because when you do expand them, okay, am I on this side or am I on this side? And then again, of course, you have to have fingertips that actually work on touchscreens to do these. And the reason that you lose so much with the ebooks compared to the paper copy is it's a lot easier to go backwards in a book. Hey, wait a minute, I just read da-da-da and go back that way. But trying to find it on my Kindle going backwards is not as easy to find. Wait a minute, that was just, where's the page? Because when you're reading like on a Kindle or an e-reader or something like that, it can be 3 pages for 1 page in the book. And so I find it easier to skip through on there too.
Anyone else doing the digital thing or trying it out?
I've read some. I think they're going to get better, kind of like you said with the whole expansion. That's just the tip of the iceberg, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think eventually, 3D.
We're already starting to see other things. We're seeing some moving backgrounds, and there's all kinds of stuff to try.
Yeah, I'd say the technology is still developing.
Yeah, exactly.
You might get sound in the back of it, and it might, read it to you.
You gotta wonder if there's ever gonna be a standard, or if they keep coming out very, very differently. I mean, I know, like you said, we're at a crossroads, but there's like a million different ways to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like comics, there's kind of a standard, but then with this, you're talking multimedia at this point. So I mean, like, you know, what is it like with sound? What is it like without sound? If you were to do that sort of thing. But then you get almost into the vein of motion comics, and then what's the point of reading it at all? You know what I mean? At that point, it's
animation.
like a movie. Yeah,
you get into animation.
Well, you know, and it's interesting to see how they tie this into other media as well. Yesterday we did a panel on Star Trek Into Darkness. And I don't know
I hated that I missed that panel.
it was a fun panel too. And I don't know how many have seen it, and I won't give away any spoilers if you haven't. But one of the things that they had, just a little thing in the movie was, hey, get the shuttle from the mud incident last month.
Yeah.
A Hartford Fenton mud, you know. And it was just a great little thing they snuck in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the gentlemen on the panel had read the comic leading up to the movie, and it was about that, right?
Yeah.
Or at
It
least,
was, yeah.
So to be able to tie that digitally into the movie would be an interesting package as a way to buy it from Amazon or whoever the provider is.
It'd be like a little, you know, link down at the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
What's really
Would you like to know more?
What's really funny, and then you get into difficult questions like, does the comic count as canon, you know, and all those sorts of things. But no, you're absolutely right. That was one of the only things in that comic that had any bearing on the film whatsoever. And it also made more sense in the film because in the comic, Mud was a female Bajoran.
Okay.
I don't understand that, but all right. Anyway, but yeah. So that was it. So no, I don't want that to be canon because that was weird. But anyway, but no. To your point, yeah, it's fun and it's interesting and it's engaging. And it's also really complicated. So yeah. But what I don't know, what else haven't we covered on this? Because it seems like we ran the gambit really
Does anybody have any
quickly.
questions?
Yes.
Yeah, any questions?
Anybody think we missed something?
I think you're missing the fact that these comics that you can download are introducing an entirely new generation.
Oh no, certainly they are.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
even introducing an older generation back to what they left off at, you know, when they got out of that year, you know, where all you're reading is Conquest and then all you're thinking about are boys. So you kind of leave it behind, and then, you know, it's like, oh yeah, I missed so much. So you want to go back, and those comics are actually only like 59 cents if you go back and read the older ones.
Yeah.
So it was pretty awesome to be able to pick that up and do that again.
If they'd fill in the blanks, I really like the idea of a Marvel subscription service. You know, if you could go back and if I could, you know, I don't remember where I dropped off on Uncanny X-Men, but I had issues like 112 through 300 and then stopped. And it would be nice to fill in, you know, what's happened since then.
Yeah.
And I would, without having to go buy them all or get the trades, which I'm not a big fan of trade paperbacks.
Oh, are you not? Okay.
You know, trades and digital is okay, but if I'm going to buy a comic book, I'd just rather go buy the comic book, you know?
That's how I am too. It's just that so many comics are. I get why people do it though, because obviously so many comics are in arcs. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
very few comic books are a single story. So I mean, it makes sense to collect them that way.
Good
It's
one.
just that, you know, I grew up reading singles, so I'm just so used to that. And
But
I
I think
hate cliffhangers. Like, I'd rather have it all together than have it separately, like one issue at a time.
And that's
well,
what
you can
hear
conclude
from-
a story, but still leave it open.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I hate it when they just leave it at, oh, someone died.
Or the crossovers when you
God.
don't collect the other book.
Yeah.
it's like they want you to buy the next one.
It's
The-
like it's
the
like
end, or
they're
is it?
toying with our hearts.
Oh, I know. It's mean. It's terrible.
You mentioned that it's bringing up a whole new generation. I don't know if you guys know this. Most kids comics at this point are starting at least at digital first, if not just digital only right now. Like DC and Marvel both have really gutted their kids lines, but then you go to their kids sites and you find out that it's all digital now. That's really interesting. So yeah, certainly a lot of new comics readers are going digital. It's easier, it's simpler. And again, where do you go to get them? You have to either buy trades or you have to go find a comic shop.
Yeah, that's true.
There's also the idea that this is also brought on because of webcomics, as she had mentioned earlier. I've seen it several times where a lot of people and myself follow certain webcomics, but then I'll see that they'll come out with new comics all the time, but then they will also publish a book of their own comics. And so it could be that we might see a change where it'll come out as digital, and then for people who want to actually own the physical copy, it's like, oh, by the way, we've got this, and then it's like, okay, well, I can actually now own this and put it on my shelf and say, look, I have a book of comics that have been being produced over the past couple of years digitally.
And with the big companies, that's already happening.
Yeah. But I mean, no matter what, you're never going to be rid of physical copies. There will always be people with...
I don't think so either.
I mean, especially with any other medium, with music and video games and movies and books and all that, there will always be people who want the digital, who want to be able to pull it up on their little smartphones. But then even as prolific as all those others, there'll still be people like, I want to have a physical copy of it.
Well, and also as long as there's a perceived value,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as long as there's a collectability, and not everybody believes that, but boy, that's going to be out there for a long time.
I think so.
And as long as artists and writers can make a living doing it, because if they can't make a living doing it, they're just not gonna. They're gonna do something else.
Strangely enough, I think that the digital revolution is actually going to increase the value of physical copies because there's going to be significantly less. More people would just be like, oh, I'll just read it on my phone, and you know, if anything ever happens, they're just like, oh man, what am I going to do about this? Oh, hey, look, there's a physical copy that we can get.
I keep wondering when that's going to start happening. Like I said, it's interesting that with comic books, at least, it hasn't affected print sales yet very much. It's weird. I mean, like I was looking at sales figures the other day, and you go back to 2011, and the numbers are about the same. It's different titles that are in the top 10, but I mean, like, you look at your 1, 2, and 3, it's still mostly, you know, between the 100,000, 150,000 range. And you think about it too. This is an important thing to mention that we haven't talked about. Comics as an industry, as a print industry, is really small. I mean, it's really small. Like, name another industry where the top things sell 100,000 units. Really small. But you also have to keep in mind that that's single issues, and that's also probably not counting like variant covers and things like that. But if you look at like trades, okay, well, it's not counting that, and then digital now, they're not counting that. So I don't know by how much, but I'm reading that the industry is growing because of digital. It's just hard to tell right now by how much because it's so new.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting, but there are a lot more people reading comics now because it's easier to do than it used to be.
It's more accessible.
It's more, yeah, exactly. It's more convenient.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that I find with the webcomics that I watch or read, I won't read the ones that use like Poser and stuff like that. And I think it's just easier to cheat on, okay, sorry about the word, but cheat on the digital side than it is on the print side. I like having to know that somebody actually drew this. They didn't just go, oh, I like this character, we'll put this arm up like this and stuff like that.
Copy, paste, copy, paste.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
And I agree with you on the moving stuff. I mean, all of my comic books were stolen. I had 12 boxes. I stopped collecting after that point.
I feel your loss.
There went $3,000 out my door. And so the collectability is definitely there too. But I just think that digital, it is so easy to cheat on it. It is so easy. And I just feel like, okay, are they going to take it from here? I mean, I've seen them where, wait a minute, I just saw that picture here, and now it's here with a different caption. And I prefer the print on that way. And yeah, you get to the point where you know, but in the print, you know you're getting to the end of it because the comics get smaller. Whereas with the digital, okay, wait a minute, there should have been another page.
It could just keep going on.
Interestingly, not that this has very much to do with what you're saying, but there are also some artists, major artists in the industry that trace. Just want to throw that out there. But anyway, so I mean, you also sort of have a little bit of that in print, just because we do have some major artists that trace and they manage to get away with it.
And if you've been in the industry long enough,
you can tell.
They're going to start doing the same stuff over, and they may not even realize it. But there's only so many ways to make a fist.
Yeah, I know, but I still don't like Poser. You can tell when they've been Poser.
Yeah, Poser it's not art in the same way as
it's cheating.
Well, someone else, the person who did the model was doing the art, and if you borrow someone else's model, you're not even doing the art. You're posing it. Sure.
Oh, especially someone else's art.
Yeah.
No, that's not right.
And I mean, and they don't get the credit for it. And it's just, like I said, I just think it's too much easier to cheat with the digital. And I do think that one of the reasons why they are starting the kids younger, though, is that I have friends that have a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they have smartphones, and they give the kids the smartphones when they're doing something else and let them beat it up because they have those other cases now. We couldn't do that 10 years ago.
Oh,
well, it's marketing. They're putting the product where the customers are. The little kids, they're on the smartphones, they're on the computers. They're not going out to the comic shop as much.
While at this point in time we have an issue with the price being the same, they're being raised with that. So in 20 years from now, they're not going to care because that's what they're used to.
They're not going to know the difference.
Yeah. Unless they watch this video.
Yeah.
Watch and learn, kids.
And I've also made other videos saying that this is annoying. The thing is, and you make a great point, because I keep thinking at some point the bottom's got to drop out and they've got to get cheaper, but it hasn't happened with books.
As long as people keep buying,
ebooks are still expensive.
Yeah.
So why does it have to happen with comics?
Ebooks are still on the norm. Just recently, they're becoming more and more with regular paperbacks. But ebooks on the norm are usually about half price of a regular book.
Well, that's because authors still want to get paid for.
I guess it's just when I see a lot of ebooks, I'm like, but I don't want to pay $5 to read something I do when I could go out and just buy it for that.
I have a 10 by 15 storage unit full of my books.
Yeah.
Which is why I now have a Kindle with books in it.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
I won't get rid of my books.
That's just how it is.
I guess the problem is it's just a problem with culture, right? Where you grow up and you're used to owning things and you're used to having value, as you've said, for the things that you have. So the idea of spending $6 or $7 or $10 on a book that you don't actually have and you just read it on I guess the problem is I have a hard time imagining that I would go back and reread it. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm spending normal price to read something one time. There's nothing stopping me from reading it again. It's just hard to imagine that I would on that device. But again, it's also new to me. I'm used to having a physical thing to read again.
It's a short-term experience.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I was raised with it, it would be a totally different ballgame.
Mm-hmm.
And I can reiterate on part of that too.
Yeah.
Is that the worst part about having ebooks on computers and stuff is my house was broken into and my computer was stolen and I lost 300 ebooks. And I can't get those ebooks back. Most people won't bother stealing a book unless they're a collector.
Yeah.
No, and that's true. You know, and
the same thing with my Kindle crashes. I'm
you know,
things on it.
what you just said about if you like the book, you'll buy it. Like, my first novel's 99 cents on the Kindle. And I've had people say, I love this, I want the print version.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because there are a lot of print books that I kept growing up thinking, well, if I ever have kids, I'm going to pass these on. And my son has read them. You know, so there is something to be said about that. I think that you're right, that having a physical copy, I have more trust in that than I do a digital copy.
Well, and I think some of the comic companies are double dipping a little bit to cash in on exactly what you're talking about. Because I've had people send me codes and things for digital comics where I read it and then I went ahead and bought it because I was like, oh, I want that for my collection, you know. And so we for a long time have been seeing single issues and then they get collected in trade. But now what they'll do is with digital first comics, which we're seeing more and more of, they'll put out the digital first, and then they'll try to get you with the singles, and then they'll get you again with the trade. And I wonder if there aren't people that do it 3 times.
Yeah, it could be.
Or at least twice. Probably not 3 times, but I do know people that buy singles knowing they're going to collect a trade, but they've got to read it the week that it comes out, so they buy it twice. That's crazy to me, but I know people that do it. It's really kind of interesting. And again, I mean, like, here's an example. They're doing a digital first comic series in the summer based on the 60s Batman show, which I'm so excited about. They actually have Cesar Romero drawn with the makeup over his mustache. It's fantastic. And but they're doing that digital first. And I'm going to want to collect those, but I also really want to review it the week it comes out. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to, at least the first issue, buy it twice just so that I can read it when it comes out.
But people do that with other medium. You go to the movies and see a movie, and then you go buy the DVD when it comes out. Maybe you also buy the soundtrack, the CD. For it.
Which I've done several times.
And,
yeah, sure.
And that's not necessarily double dipping.
You're right. This is not new. Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Because Amazon's doing that too, aren't they? With I know I have friends who listen to the audio one, I read the book, but now they kind of bundle them together. If you buy one, you get the other one cheaper.
Yes.
So, you know, then you can't beat that. You
No.
know? I mean, unless you're gonna do it.
No, that's a good point. That's not fair to call it double dipping, because if I think it's okay, if I don't think they're hitting me twice when I go watch a movie in the movie theater just to get a different experience than if I owned it later, that's kind of the same thing. If you get it in digital, you read it, and then later you buy it.
Yeah, you're paying for the experience now, and then later on you pay for the experience then.
I mean, you pay for the ownership.
Yeah.
The online comics kind of keep me honest. I'll scan to the back of the page, like just with my eyes, and I'll look over and be like, oh, okay, this is gonna go good.
Okay.
When you're reading it from frame to frame,
Then you can't.
then you can't scan real fast and see what's going on.
That's the thing. That's the one thing I really love about digital comics is I could be surprised.
Yeah.
In a way that I can't in print.
Mm-hmm.
I still think the screen's too small.
I also have an iPad, so it's just.
Yeah, I can't do it on a
works
phone. It's got to be a
better.
tablet.
Yeah.
Well, tablet is almost the size of a comic book.
It
anyway.
is.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to go panel to panel. You can actually read it on normal size. The first time I read one on a tablet, I was blown away because I went, "Wait, you mean I don't have to like move around? It's fantastic." So, well, does anybody else have anything? I feel like we covered the gambit on that topic.
Pretty much.
It went really well. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank
You
you
bet.
guys. Thanks everybody
Thanks
for being here.
Thanks for coming.